So we just talked to Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Now her challenger, Republican Tudor Dixon, is on with us right now. Can I call you Tudor?
Of course. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
having
morning.
me on your show.
Good morning. All right, so we just got a chance to hear from Governor Whitmer, and she said a lot of things about you. And it's funny because I watch all these commercials that are on television, and there's a lot of commercials, but there are a lot of Governor Whitmer commercials. I don't see a lot of commercials for you for some reason.
Oh, you're not watching YouTube then?
Is she advertising on YouTube?
Every time before I have to watch Preston Plays Tudor, it's a Tudor Dixon commercial.
All right, so
Well, thank you for defending me.
Okay, so you do have your
She's
commercials.
got 'em.
Well,
She's got 'em.
she just at the end of our interview, she said that there's a bunch of stuff in there. We were talking, and my question to her was, and I don't know if you heard it, but they're saying that moms are going to be the difference maker in this election. That women are going to be the ones that are going to decide who the next governor of the state of Michigan is. And it's a lot to do with schools, but also a lot to do with the economy and being able to put food on their tables. And be able to feed their kids, 3+ meals a day. She said some things about you, and I'll just kind of go through and let you talk about it. She talked about how you spread a lot of lies during COVID. You were anti-vaccine. You said that the vaccine was the mark of, I don't know, what did she say it was? It was
Mark of the beast.
The mark of the beast. Did you do all that?
I've never been anti-vaccine. I have the vaccine. I've gotten the vaccine. So when she says that, it always makes me laugh because I think, well, if I were so anti-vaccine, why did I get the vaccine and then tell people on the air that I had the vaccine? So that's just completely false. My parents got the vaccine. My dad was going through cancer at the time. I'm a cancer survivor. And I actually made this statement on the air. Look, there are people that you have to understand are going through things that are different than you. And if you choose not to get it, that's your decision. But I chose to get it, and these are the reasons why I chose to get it. And I've been very open about that. She's saying that I'm anti-vaccine because I came out and I was very clear about the fact that even though the CDC has recommended adding the vaccine to the child vaccination schedule, I will not require that in the state of Michigan. There will be no mandates for children getting the vaccine, and I do feel strongly about that. That is absolutely true. I do feel strongly that there will never be a mandate for children to get this vaccine.
This morning I woke up and I was listening to WWJ, our news station here in Detroit, and I heard Charlie Langton out doing a report. Their lead story was that overnight, drastically, gas prices went up, in some cases, 20 cents a gallon in the Metro Detroit area. The price of food and the price of just about everything, drugs and anything that you're going to put on, to keep your family healthy are higher right now. Is there something that a governor of a state can do against that, or is that purely Washington, D.C., the reason why we're paying more for everything?
Well, she already had the opportunity to give the folks of Michigan a gas tax holiday. It's so crucial that we look at when Michigan is rising above other states that we do as much as we can to get money back into the pockets of people. Let's talk about the different ways that she could have done that because there were several. She's had multiple opportunities to reduce taxes. She's only tried to increase taxes and been blocked by the Republicans. So she could have given the reduction in personal income tax twice. She was offered that. She was offered a child tax credit because people so desperately wanted to make sure that they kept that child tax credit. She also vetoed that. And when she talks about a bipartisan budget, remember, she's one of the few governors that has a veto pen. And so when these things come through, she can pass the budget and then choose what she doesn't want the people to have. And that's what she did in these cases. The same with a retirement tax reduction. She also line item vetoed that as well. And she came out in the debate and she said, well, it's because it wouldn't have gone into effect until 23. Now, what you need to understand is the reason it wouldn't have gone into effect until 23 is because the Democrat senators voted against immediate institution of these tax reductions. So because of the Democrats, they moved it and they said it won't go into effect until next year when the budget goes into effect. And the governor said, well, then I'm not going to allow this to go through. But think about this. In the midst of we know that we're going into a recession. That would be the time when people need it most. She chose on her own, no discussions. She doesn't have to answer to anyone, just to line item veto relief for the people of Michigan. we've talked multiple times about the importance of relief. She mocks our plan to reduce over time the personal income tax and get rid of it. So when she says she wants to reduce taxes, then why is she literally running commercials saying my opponent is going to reduce taxes and that's a stupid plan? She doesn't actually have a plan to put money back into the pockets of people. She came out in the debate and said the governor cannot affect inflation, which is an absolute lie. The governor can, and she's had 5 opportunities to do so, but she chose not to, not because she came out with some grand plan to affect people's budgets in some other way, because she just decided on a whim to line item veto these issues.
Tudor, Spike brought up a really very probably most important question out of the last interview that we had, and it involves a lot of our listeners, and that was the school shooting at Oxford High School. And I'm going to have him ask you the question that he asked Governor Whitmer to hear what your response is to this one, and then maybe talk about what Governor Whitmer said that her way of handling gun violence is.
Yeah, I'd like to hear this because, you just said she doesn't answer to anyone, but that's not necessarily true because she does work with a GOP-led legislature. So she is kind of limited in some of the things she can get done, and especially with the school violence of shootings and funding law enforcement and curbing gun violence. So that's why I want to ask you, because your opponent said your policy was to put more guns in schools to shoot the shooter. Can you tell us what you would do to curb school shootings and fund law enforcement? Because we're always on an endless cycle of we do thoughts and prayers, then people move on, and then nothing ever changes. This happens again and again without seeing our kids safe. So can you tell us what you would do to improve those threats?
Yeah,
to improve attention to those threats.
I'm glad you point that out because, as you noted, this obviously happened in the state of Michigan, and Gretchen Whitmer's response then was we need to have a discussion, and she hasn't done anything. And I know what you're saying about, she has the answer to the legislature, but my point was in the line item veto, she doesn't. She answers to no one. And so when you look at school shootings, we had a plan from our state police in 2018 that came through a very comprehensive plan that does cover the best ways to keep kids safe. Those are our safety experts. The state police keep the governor safe. So why is it that the state police have a good plan to keep the governor safe, but she doesn't think it's a good enough plan to keep our students safe? So when they come up with a plan that says this is how we harden our schools and we should have armed guards, which I will point out again, the governor has armed guards. So the state police are saying the best way for us to keep kids safe is to have an armed guard on campus, to have one entry point, but also to monitor mental health and have experts in there that are saying when a child is in trouble, you don't let them go back into the classroom. Even when you call parents into the office and say there's a serious issue, have that child escorted off of the grounds. And in fact, if this 2018 plan had been implemented, we may not have seen what we saw at Oxford. So when she says these things, I say, what has she done? If she has in her mind that there's only one answer to solving the problem of keeping our kids safe, and that's not what the elected officials around the state think, and they want to sit down and actually have that discussion, then how is it that we go through years of nothing happening? Is it that she's willing to work with the legislature, or is the bipartisan story just a bunch of baloney?
What would you do differently with the legislature who does oppose a lot of those? Your opponent has backed more money for school-based mental health centers. It got stopped and blocked in our legislature. Same with improved threat assessments, with the reforms in the safe storage bill she mentioned in her interview. What would you do to move your party somewhere closer to taking action on those?
It's important to actually sit down and discuss with the legislature. Shane Hernandez, my lieutenant governor, he was actually the appropriations chair. He managed the budget, and he met with Gretchen Whitmer once. I've talked to folks on our own education committee who have never met Governor Whitmer. So when she says she's willing to sit down and talk to them, you actually have to walk into the room and meet the people. But she closed down government. She sent people home, and she seems to have stopped actually working with people. It makes me laugh when she talks about being bipartisan, because we all know that during COVID, we had a elected officials across the state saying, you can't shut down our dairy farms. You can't shut down our restaurants. You got to help us out and let these people go back to work and earn a livelihood. And she just would not listen. She went against the legislature, ran executive orders into the ground to the point where they had to have the Supreme Court take her executive orders away. I mean, you look back at Michigan, it's unlike any other state. And when she talks about actually having discussions with them, that's the main problem that we have in the state of Michigan, which has caused massive failures across the board. You can put more money into education.
Governor Whitmer said that saved lives. Do you believe that?
That shutting down
everything's shutting down, yeah.
There is a fine line between making sure people are safe and crushing your economy to the point of no recovery. You have to be nimble, and you have to open up when you can. We saw the same amount of lives saved and lost in surrounding states. But think about how crazy it was that people would go down to Indiana and Ohio just to have dinner, and somehow they were safe. You could talk to the governors of Indiana and Ohio if you refused to talk to your own legislature and the experts and the ER docs on the southeast side that were begging her to listen to them about what she could do. You could talk to those folks and realize that, wow, other states are not ruining people's livelihoods. Other states aren't losing the most small businesses in the entire country, 82,000 jobs, 3,000 restaurants. Other states aren't closing down restaurants for 8 months at a time. Maybe she should have stepped out of her own personal bubble and said, what can I learn from some of the other leaders out there who are allowing people to actually earn a living and not crushing their hopes and dreams and taking their businesses away? I mean, she was so vindictive. She went out to a woman who was running her company and had her arrested and thrown in jail for 3 days with chains around her waist. I mean, was that kind of stuff necessary? Those are the things people have not forgotten. I had two people yesterday at a rally raise their hand and say, one man said, my daughter died completely alone in a hospital because Gretchen Whitmer wouldn't let me go in and see her. Another man said, I lost my wife the same way. People don't forget when you are unbending, when you can't be nimble.
You just brought up what people are bringing to you, and I want to play this for you. So we had Governor Whitmer on with us just a few minutes ago. We have Tudor Dixon, who's her opponent. You can listen to the podcast of both and hear that we're giving them all both equal time, and I'm going to kind of end on this one. But Stephen Colbert did a joke about you on his show. I'm sure you already heard about this because it's now the big story on the Daily Mail this morning. He mocked you, saying that you made up a story about a person coming up to you to talk to you about something. I'll play the clip, and then I'm going to have you respond to this, and then we'll talk about it.
Dixon's not the only one worried about this issue. So is this guy she totally made up.
I had a gentleman come up to me just a few nights ago, and he said, I found content in my school library describing how to have sex to my son. I went to the Democrats, and I said, I cannot believe that this is in there.
Okay. Fine. That happened. But even if it did, if someone found a book they didn't like at a school library, why would they go to the Democrats? That's like saying, excuse me, is this Chuck Schumer's office? I didn't like the finale of House of the Dragon. Also, this natural peanut butter is way too oily when it's in the cupboard, but it gets too hard when it's in the fridge. I'm voting Republican. Good day, sir.
That person that you were talking about, Stephen Colbert kind of made to believe that it was made up, came forward to the Detroit Free Press. His name is Khalil Othman, I believe his name was, or Othman. And he came up and said, no, that is true. I was the person that came up to you. You know, it's funny. I hate this time of the year because I think political ads should be banned forever, and the way that we vote on who's the next candidate is by doing one of those silly shows like The Voice or something. Let's see who can sing the best. I don't know, but I never know when I watch a political ad, or now I can't know if I'm watching a show like Stephen Colbert who's telling me the truth and who's not telling me the truth.
Well, right, exactly. I mean, this is a situation where I said this, and then that's when Gretchen Whitmer turned to me and said, my opponent thinks that books are more dangerous than guns. I think that both things need to be addressed. That's what I'm saying. Look, I want to keep our kids safe, no matter what it is, and I'm listening. I am listening when I'm out on the trail, and every story that comes to me, I take very seriously. So when I announce that this is what I'm hearing from fathers, and the Democrats do mock it, and of course he went to the Democrats. That's his elected official. What are Democrats not getting? They represent the people. That's why the people go to them and say, I don't like this. Help us fix it. But they just mock them.
I have to end because I gave each of you guys a time, and now I have to end this. And the next time that both of you guys can be on the show with us, I want you guys to play the 5 at 6:55 and see which one of you guys knows pop culture. Okay, that's the next thing that we're going to do. Enough politics. I'm done with politics. After Tuesday, well, they'll still be talking politics. People are, for some reason, they're going to still be talking about it. All right, Tudor Dixon on with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And appreciate it. And it's interesting. I would love for our listeners to go back and listen to both of these podcasts and just listen to that. But I would, more so than anything, I don't care who you vote for. I really don't. Just go out and vote. And
it's sad that there's still a third of the state eligible to vote that never shows up for elections.
And this particular election is so important.
Well, all elections are important. I got to be honest with you. The election for your local school board has turned out to be the most important thing that has happened to anybody, because people have realized that any Yahoo can be on the school board.
Yep.
And honestly,
the local school boards are the ones that were deciding how long schools should stay open in the past couple years, and they're the ones that decide on funding issues and educational issues. And that's these small places you got to get into and look at what your local officials are doing.